The famous African revolutionary leader, Amilcar Cabral, once said, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures." Nigeria has a long history of criminalizing protests. This systemic brutality came to the fore again on Saturday, the 13th day of February 2021, as Nigerian policemen cracked down on the occupied Lekki toll gate protesters at the toll gate, during which about 40 persons were arrested. They protested against the decision of the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry to return the toll gate to the Lekki Concession Company. The arrested persons were said to have been granted bail after the police arraigned them at a mobile court sitting at the State Criminal Investigation and Intelligence Department, Panti, Yaba, for creating tension and behaving in such a manner that could cause breach of public peace. Nigerians were appalled at the treatment meted out to peaceful protesters on that day. With us to discuss the matters arising with regards to the Occupy Lekki protest is Mr. Dele Farotimi, legal practitioner. It's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV again, sir.
It's a pleasure being here, bro. Nice to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, let's go straight to this. What was your reaction to the police brutality towards the Occupy Lekki protesters on Saturday?
Reactions? Absolutely none. For the simple reason that the Nigerian police did exactly as they were expected to do, as they have always done. They did exactly what was expected of them. So what reaction could I possibly have? We had responses prepared. You see, this Sorosoke generation, they are coconut-headed people. Coconut-headed. And I'll tell you why I say they are coconut-headed. Did you hear what Macaroni said? He said he knew he was going to be arrested, but he went anyway. That was him. I was speaking with Dabira just before she was arrested. She called me and she was like, "Oh, they're arresting people, but she needs to join them. She has to be arrested as well." I just began to laugh. I said, "You people with your coconut heads. Why am I calling them coconut? Because sometimes I split between calling them coconut heads. I call them suicidal. Sometimes I call them idiots. I use these words always affectionately. And the reason is this. They were not unaware of the risks they were taking when they elected to protest at the Lekki toll gate on Saturday. Remember that some of the people who are rearrested again, who were arrested on Saturday, were victims, people who were at the toll gate. They were witnesses to what happened on the 20th. So they were not unfamiliar with the venal brutality of the Nigerian state. They are familiar with the fact that Nigeria is a murderous state. They are familiar with the fact that our law enforcement agencies are not bound by any laws. They are fully aware. Some of them carried dead bodies. Some of them are still carrying bullets in their bodies. These people who are protesting on Saturday. So these are not people who are unaware of the country in which they live or the capacity of the Nigerian state for wickedness and evil. So they were aware. They knew what they were letting themselves in for. And if they were so silly that they were not aware, I had actually told them exactly what to expect. I told them on Tuesday, after I had heard of the planned protest, I called them aside. They were having a meeting. I joined their meeting and I told them, I said, expect the Nigerian police to block every access to that spot. And if you manage to get there, expect them to be waiting to arrest you because they cannot afford to allow you the rights of citizenship. Only citizens protest. Citizens have rights to have expectations of their rulers or leaders. But in the situation where these people were already aware that they were not citizens, so they didn't go there to protest. I'm coming to the point of realization now where it's obvious to me that these people did not go there to protest in the expectation that they will be allowed to. But there was a need. And this is the most important part of what these people did on Saturday. there is a need for the rest of us who are still busy imagining that you could somehow vote your way out of this mess. That it is only citizens who are capable of voting people out of power. Since the unholy alliance that birthed the APC, where the unthinking thieves and the thinking thieves and the most virulently conservative element of the northern oligarchy fused together, the worst instinct of all have assured that what we have today is at best a fascist dictatorship disguised as a democracy. You cannot vote out the evil that is in power today. It is not bound by law. If you ever had any doubt, believe me, that was what the protesters on Saturday helped you to clear, if you still have any brain between your two ears. Because how much more peaceful could you have asked protesters to be? How much more civil could you have asked protesters to be? And how much more wicked could you have expected the law enforcement agencies of a state to be? So if people are still in doubt as to the nature of the evil that is before us, that will be because they have willfully hypnotized themselves and deliberately refused to see what they ought to see. If Yele Sowore took off Buhari's mask, what the NSAS protesters have done is to strip the Nigerian state naked for all of you to see. So anyone who is still deluded into believing that we are living in a civilized democracy, I don't believe anybody can help such a person anymore. Their case is hopeless.
That seems to be ominous. Let me start with your tweet, one of your recent tweets, in which you said this is a public service announcement from the Ministry of Clarity, that Nigeria is not a democracy and the Nigerian is not a citizen. There is a liberation struggle ahead of us. Get ready. I mean, I'm quoting from your text, from your tweet. And that sounds really, really ominous. One begins to wonder, is this generation really ready for this call for a liberation struggle? I mean, considering what happened at the Lekki Gate protest. And let me also get your view on the Lagos CP's stand when he issued a press statement to condemn the molestation of arrested protesters in a viral video, and he went ahead to institute an immediate investigation. I would really appreciate if you can also juxtapose that with your comment. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, what I'll do is, let me start with the one that is easiest to unbundle. And that is the hypocritical statement of the police. You know, the Yorubas have a proverb. They say that Ajekelano, Omokuleni, Tani Oshaimo, Pajano Lupomoje. The witch cried last night, and the child died overnight. Who does not know that it is the witch that was busy screeching last night that just had the child for snack? The commissioner of police was particularly eloquent in voicing his opposition to the rally, to the protest. He wasn't economical at all in making clear what the response would be. The day before, or was it a couple of days before, there was a rehearsal right in front of Camp Salem House.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was a rehearsal. The kind of people we expected to find at the Occupy Lagos, the counter-protesters that we expected to find there, they had their rehearsal. We all saw the rehearsal right in front of Camp Salem House. Where were all the battle-ready policemen that we were to see at Lekki beginning from Friday? They were nowhere to be found. The usual boys had their fun at the expense of the entire city.
Oh.
And there's nothing strange there. The Nigerian state has always had space and time for madness.
Oh.
It is those who demand citizenship that it perennially attacks.
Oh.
So there was nothing new there. So by the following day, there was also nothing surprising about the way the police acted. The Nigerian police is institutionally incapable of treating the Nigerian as a citizen. The Nigerian is perennially to be treated as though the police is a taskmaster in a slave plantation who has been ceded power by the plantation owner. So he's more or less part of the slave army, but he himself is only slightly above. All you need to do to prove this is go to any police barrack or see what happens to the policeman's family once they die. The Nigerian state really has very little use for the policeman beyond treating him as an elevated slave. So when you find the way they treated the protesters, you see very quickly that, in fact, they were by far more civilized. They didn't fire bullets. It was only slaps. After all, it was just a few slaps here, a few kicks there, a few punches here and there. And then they took them right in full glare of cameras. No situational awareness of any sort, because that is the way it is normal. They do it. They don't even know that what they are doing is wrong anymore. They could not wait to get them to the police station before assaulting them, before battering them. They were doing so right in front of cameras at the toll gate plaza itself. So at least the public cameras captured that part. But the part that we should find even more interesting is the part where they could not resist. They just couldn't resist the temptation of taking videos of people they had attempted to dehumanize and humiliate.
That's right.
The sight of Debo, Mr. Macaroni, stripped and kept huddled in a corner of the bus was too much for them not to video, because these were not videos taken by the victims. Yeah. These were videos taken by police officers who wanted bragging rights and to catch clout. So the videos started coming out. The videos started coming out. Before the video from the Macaroni video, there had been other videos coming out. We already had information that people were being assaulted at Dele, that they were being beaten. It was only then we started tweeting it out that these people are already being beaten. So, and there was nothing new there. The people being arrested knew that they would be beaten. Some of them expected to be killed. They had seen people killed at that same toll gate in October. And some of them still have bullets, I repeat it, in their bodies. And they still went ahead. So let's be clear. The people who were assaulted knew they would be assaulted. The Nigerian police don't done anything. Mr. Judicial can say anything he cares to say. The Nigerian police functions on impunity, because without impunity, the Nigerian state itself will collapse. So let's stop fooling ourselves and stop all that public relations that is investigating this. Who is he investigating? He's an accessory before the crime. The people who are at the toll gate had done nothing wrong. He had no right in the first place to have treated them, to have arrested them at all. He's not even, he had no right to have done so, but he has done so because we have no rights in Nigeria. If we had any rights, he would not dare to do what he has done. So all this is, and that he is instituting probe. He can show his probe where the sun does not shine. Pardon my French. Now, let us deal with the tweet that I sent out. Yeah. See, I attempted to get a degree in English language before I eventually graduated with law. And I have a love of words, and I hate linguistics inexactitude. When I use words, I try to make sure that the word actually means what it is intended to mean. The Nigerian is not a citizen. Citizenship in any state or country exists on an even keel.
Yeah.
You cannot have variable levels of citizenship. It is not possible that the man from one part of the country is more valuable in the scale of citizenship than the next. It cannot tilt. That scale cannot tilt. When it tilts, what you have is not citizenship. What you have is membership. Membership can exist on varying levels, and that is what the Nigerian has. Even the Constitution, the fraudulent 1999 Constitution, assures that our membership does not exist on the same scale. That is why you have educationally disadvantaged state, quota system, that system. These systems, every advantage that you create for one is a disadvantage that you have guaranteed to another. So in the first place, insofar as it relates to citizenship, you don't need an irredentist like Buhari to make it clear to you that we are not the same. In the first place, the current Nigerian hegemony is built on the presumption of a single homogeneous northern Nigeria. It is then further presumed that the Igbo man or woman exists on a scale that is below all of those, because one, institutionally is barred from several things within that federation. Now, that's another word, federation. Are we a federation? We are not. So we have so many words we misuse and abuse in this country. Citizenship is one of them. And it should not be so difficult for people to discover that that word in Nigeria is a fraud. If I can score 200 in an exam and not qualify, but somebody else can score 20 and qualify, and we attended the same school, but on account of the state of his birth, his ethnicity, he is pre-qualified and I am pre-disadvantaged. That is not citizenship. The Nigerian is not a citizen. That is one. Now, the second thing in that tweet is that Nigeria is not a democracy. I am not too sure that in the light of what has happened in recent times, anyone can argue the fact that we are definitely not a democracy. That you say a place is the Democratic Republic or so and so does not necessarily make it democratic. If I sleep in a garage, I don't become a car. The reality is that calling Nigeria a democracy, having elections, quote and unquote, where fantastic figures are always returned and the vote does not count, those are not elements of a democracy. In a democracy, my rights as a citizen, you see, that's the thing right there. If I'm not a citizen, how can I be in a democracy? I am not a citizen. My vote does not count. If I were to be a citizen, the police would think twice before shooting me. He will refuse that order. So all these issues, when I say we are not a democracy, and then I said it's a liberation struggle. I must thank Dele for the Ministry of Clarity. The word Ministry of Clarity, the phrase is not mine. It belongs to Taiwo Akinlami, my brother. He's the one who coins that phrase, Ministry of Clarity. And what does it do? It discerns a word and it delivers it as it sees it. You might like it, you might dislike it, but it is a truth that you can only seek to disprove and then find very quickly that the more you argue against it, the more you yourself become convinced as to the truth of the proposition. The fact is simple. You cannot vote your way out of this shitstorm. For as long as the law does not rule, for as long as it is the will of men that rules, for as long as you have the sort of impunity that we have seen displayed openly at the Lekki toll gate, regardless of all these asinine and stupid denials, there is a live Instagram feed, for heaven's sake. So when you now consider the fact that the same powers have contrived to deny what they did, and they have managed to persuade people into believing and then disbelieving the evidence of their own eyes to the point where they are slavishly regurgitating idiocy up and down the place, denying the humanity of people who have died. You must begin to understand very quickly that the nature of that struggle is not a pro-democracy struggle. You can, like anyone who is thinking that the Nigerian situation is a pro-democracy struggle, the person is naive in the extreme. The situation we are in is that we are captives of systemic slavery. I will know, and this is important. Maybe I'll close this point. I'll close the point on this, and the argument on this point. I will know because I come from the class that has become enslaved today. My father was a civil servant. If I was born in this age and time, I would never have acquired an education. I wouldn't. I got public school education. I didn't go to any private school. And the quality of the education I got is by far better than the ones that we're all paying through our noses, have become slaves to ensure that our children go to school. It was by far more, was better quality education. I went to a grammar school in my mother's hometown. I received quality education. There were teachers from across the West African coast. There was Oduro Mensah teaching art. There were so many people, experts from all over the world. My physics teacher was Pakistani. My English teacher was Canadian. It wasn't from international school, it was Fidelity Grammar School. That was the quality of brain in the place. Look at us today. If I were born in this generation, I would not become what I have become. I would never have fulfilled my potential. What has happened is that the Nigerians have become captives to a class who have increasingly colonized and appropriated the commonwealth to themselves and starved the lower class more and more. And the painful part of the whole thing is that the complicit middle class, who are people coming from my background as well, who have come through because it was possible to come upward if you pulled yourself by your bootstrap and you were willing to work in my generation. They've kept quiet, and their children are going to become the victims if we do not break this cycle. So yes, it's a liberation struggle. It is not a pro-democracy struggle. If it were, the weaponized poverty and weaponized ignorance would have been broken. But the system has weaponized ignorance for so many, like 3 generations now, since the 80s. They have deliberately dumped down Nigerians. So it's a liberation struggle. It's not a pro-democracy struggle.
That's quite sad, and I hope and I believe that those who are supposed to be hearing this are actually hearing this. Let's go ahead.
I hope so.
Two things were clearly evident from what happened at the Occupy Lekki tollgate protest the other day, and one was the seizure and militarization of civic space. I mean, earlier on, we were talking about the fact that Nigeria is no longer a democracy. And it is quite evident that now we are beginning to see a civic space militarization. And not only that, we are also seeing the privatization of the state. You saw what happened with the LCC performing the role of an arresting agency on that very day. I'd like to pick your mind on this. There's been call by a section of Nigerians that the youths and the civil society representatives should immediately withdraw from all NSAS judicial panels. I mean, because it is quite evident that Buhari and the governors, as well as especially the governors of Lagos and Anambra states, have not shown honesty in meeting the demands of the youths. What's your take on this?
You see, the difference between those who will make differences in society and those who will merely disrupt societies are to be found in whether they react or whether they respond. I do not react. I believe in responses. Responses mean that you have sat down, you have considered all of your options, and then you decide on the best course of action going forward. I am part of a body known as Ramimba, the Radical Agenda Movement in the Nigerian Bar Association. We took a considered position to participate and offer legal assistance to victims. And we have been engaged in that for some months now. When we have spoken with the victims whom we are representing, when we have had the opportunity to consult with others in the struggle, we would take a position and we would make sure to communicate that position. But let me say this. We did not go before the panel in the expectation that we would get justice from the panel. We are not deluded enough to believe that the same people who had perpetrated the act would have any interest whatsoever in uncovering the truth. So we went into the panel with the clear understanding that it was up to us to let the Nigerian public see that the Nigerian state is a murderer that has no interest whatsoever in uncovering the truth of what it had done. So by the time the Nigerian army began to play its hide and seek, we were not surprised. We expected it. And it is our intention to ensure that the whole world sees it clearly, that it is running away from the panel created by the civilian authority, so that we will soon know if we withdraw, we would have played into their hands. That is not to say that we might not withdraw, but these are all the issues we have to consider. If they have set up a panel, it is their panel, and then the army is running away from the panel, the logical inferences are clear. If the LCC is concealing information, the logical inferences are clear. But if we are not there to force them into the light and into flight, because if we were not there to ask questions, they'll probably come. As General Taiwo came to come and play his tapes, thinking that that would be the end of it. The colonel who led the troop that day, there's a subpoena for him. He hasn't shown up. The general who intervened to stop the killing, there is a subpoena for him. He hasn't shown up. General Taiwo is not just going to stand there and think that he's coming for a lecture. It is a panel of inquiry. Questions are going to be asked of them, or it will be concluded that they did not attend the panel. And they have priors. In the case of the mother in Kaduna, I believe, when they killed the Shia, by the panel of inquiry set up, they denied it originally. They denied killing anybody. That was the original thing. The panel of inquiry set up by the Kaduna state government found that over 340 people were killed. That was after the original denial. So if you find them running away from facing the tribunal, the inferences are clear. We have said it unequivocally that the Nigerian army murdered people at the toll gate that day. How many? We don't know. But it is the duty of the state, if it still believes itself to have a duty to the citizens, to determine what happened there. And it is that duty that it shamefacedly attempted to meet when it set up that tribunal. If we abandoned the tribunal at that time, we will not be seeing the inconsistencies we are seeing today. If we walk the way now, we have to balance it against the need to unveil all these people for what they are before their own tribunal. If we had gone to court, we probably would still be at the stage where we are arguing motions without ever calling a single witness. But because it's their panel, it is possible to make it quicker. Not necessarily that it will end there, but facts are easier to establish in the quasi-judicial environment of the panel. So as a fact, we now know today that people were actually killed. Their hospital records before the panel, turned in by hospitals across the Lekki Peninsula, that accepted the fact that people were killed at the toll gate, more than have been admitted. How many? We await the final reports. We now know that the Nigerian army is particularly reluctant about coming back to that tribunal. All of a sudden, it is catching cold and COVID and everything when it comes anywhere close to that tribunal, and it has refused to show up. Why are they running if they have nothing to hide? So already we have a clear idea. So it's up to them to discharge the honors that they are a murderous institution. That is one. So for us, the question of whether we withdraw or remain is one that will be determined only after we have had the opportunity to look at the totality of the issues and make an informed decision. We don't want to react. We want to respond.
But from your own perspective and from your view, hasn't the panel of inquiries, has it not outlived its usefulness at this point in time?
Yes and no. You see, everything is about strategy. The first thing is, where are we going? Where we are going, it's even good that you've asked this question. If I was going to the beach this morning, I probably would have packed me a swimsuit and flip-flops. I wouldn't be wearing jeans. I wouldn't be wearing suede shoes. I definitely would have dressed differently. So where I dress for where I'm going. Where are we, the conscious layer of Nigerian people, where are we going? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because it is a function of where we are going that will determine how we dress. How we deal with that tribunal should be, at least like I said, we always knew we were not going to get justice before that tribunal. We had no doubt on our mind, and we told the victims we were representing that it is unlikely that we'll get any justice whatsoever before the Obi tribunal. We told them. It is not a function of the tribunal itself being incapable of delivering justice, but it is a function of the fact that the Nigerian state is completely incapable of delivering justice. It is an unjust, iniquitous, wicked, and evil state. And one of the ways you know that we know what we are dealing with. We know this state. Collectively, okay, Baba Ogunlano is in his 50s. I'm in my 50s. We grew up at the peak of the Nigerian evil. We saw Babangida. We saw this Buhari. We were already in university when Buhari was there. So it's not as if we were kids. So we saw the way he acted. We saw Buhari. We survived Abacha. We saw Abdul Salami. So we've lived through it. So we knew that regardless of what the members of the panel might intend, it was never going to be possible for them institutionally to deliver justice. So we had our own purposes when we elected to go before the panel. When we determined that the panel has outlived its usefulness in our own purpose, we walk away. But for now, it will be most unfair for me and most reactionary for me to say, oh, we are going, we are leaving. It's not my call. A lot of people made the original call. Maybe I was even against sitting down there. You don't know. But a lot of people, we sat down, we argued this back and forth, and we settled on go there, use their own forum to unmask them. And we've done a pretty good job, if you ask me. So let's see if it might still have some use for us. But within the next week, we'll definitely be making a clear statement of intention.
Let me also get your perspective on this, based on the what happened that the peaceful protesters were arrested and detained at the police stations. Lawyers appeared. We were told and informed that lawyers appeared and were denied access to them, which is considered to be a constitutional breach in itself. One begins to what? Arrested for breach of the peace. Looking at the issue that was filed against them, one begins to wonder how serious the police and the Attorney General of Lagos seems to be. Because one begins to ask, one question that is bothering Nigerians is, how are they going to establish proof that the conduct of the activities amounted to breach of peace or will have ensured, breach, considering the fact that one of the strangest things that happened at the arrest was that people were rounded up even before anything actually happened. No chanting, no banners, nothing whatsoever. So it bothers one. Your view on this, please.
You just made me laugh, and I've just been trying my best to control me. See, Yorubas have this proverb. They say, "Oromadie komaudi." The chicken, the little chick, has no way of recognizing the kite in the kite up. But the mother knows all of the avian, all of the raptors in the skies are known to the mother. I find this question, because your question has a presumption that I have never been saddled with. You presume that you are in a democracy when you ask that question. You presume that you are a citizen when you ask that question. You presume that the Nigerian police is bound by laws when you ask that question. And you presume to think you have rights when you have asked that question. You see, those kind of questions get you killed in a country like Nigeria, because you've made a whole lot of presumptions that are completely unsupported by the available facts and the realities that are staring you in the face. In the first place, you just said it yourself. You said they had not even done anything before they were packed up. Clearly. So what they are telling you, we have the choice of killing you and denying that we killed you, but we didn't do that. We are simply packing you away so that you don't even try that nonsense. We are not going to accept it. So you see, that's why I said the best thing those guys did for all of us that day is that they helped Nigerians to clarify the issues. And all those ones who are still busy shouting, go and get your PVC. 2023 is coming. Oh, there. The thing is with 2023 is their game. You will never approve them through the ballot. Is their game. So please, they could have charged them for, in fact, let's be thankful to God, they could have charged them for terrorism, Look at Shobore in Abuja now. One of his, I think his original count was it not terrorism, but what was that?
Exactly.
They could have charged them with anything. Look, the reality is that unless we, by popular action, compel a change of the Nigerian governance systems, you can never, ever, ever acquire the right to protest. Only citizens have those rights. You are not citizens.
But let's look at it. I mean, which is quite a contradiction. The only legal way to actually achieve that is through the ballot. Don't you feel that?
What legal way? Sorry. You've conflated issues.
Sorry, the only
the government itself, in the first place, is Nigeria itself a legal entity? That is the first question we need to be asking ourselves. Is Nigeria a legal entity? Every agreement in the world, every relationship in the world is governed by an agreement. Every relationship in the entire wide world is governed by an agreement. I've written a few in my lifetime. If you are digging a soak away in my compound, there's probably an agreement, whether we've written it down or we have it in oral, as an oral agreement between us. There is an agreement. Something governs our relationship. If I'm selling you a car, something governs the sale of that car. If you have sold me a house, an agreement governs it. And by law, there are certain classes of agreements that must be in writing. The Constitution is not one of them, because you have countries such as Britain with an unwritten constitution. That does not mean they don't have body of works that forms the rules governing their country. But in Nigeria, we have always had one form of constitution or the other. But the last time the Nigerian people expressed their wish and their will was in the 1963 Republican Constitution. After that constitution, every Nigerian constitution has been a military decree, even though it says we the people. The last iteration of this fraudulent document is the 1999 Constitution. It is the most blatantly fraudulent of the whole lot. Because even the first president that was meant to have been sworn in on that constitution never saw it until well after his swearing in, days after. So there are sufficient information in the public domain to confirm the veracity of what I have just said. But that is quite aside from the fact that these were impositions brought on all of us by a bunch of military crooks in uniform, who have been proven to be nothing but venal crooks who stole the nation blind and ruled without vision. Those were the ones who determined what was written, and then they fraudulently inserted the word, we the people. Which were the people? Where did the people sit down? So the foundation of the country itself is manifestly fraudulent. So how do you change a fraudulent system? You mobilize the people. But the difference between a revolution and anarchy, because they are two, is the same thing. Anarchy ends the system. A revolution ends the system. And a lot of time, people confuse anarchy for revolution. For the end of a system to be a revolution, it would mean that there was a central idea behind which the people were mobilized before the old system was ended. So it's not as if you are coming from 100 to 0. No, you are moving from one system into a system that you have persuaded the people to buy into. You are not imposing your will on them. You have shared the ideas. They have agreed, because the fact that they are moving behind it is the agreement. So being disenchanted with one system, refusing to offer an alternative system, but canvassing the end of that system only leads to anarchy. There are several Nigerians, eminently qualified Nigerians, who have written several proposed constitutions that we have never managed to sit around the table to talk to ourselves about, because the beneficiaries of the current system have assured that it will never happen. The current government, when the APC was being formed, one of the cardinal things one of the frauds amongst many, was that it will restructure Nigeria. It will become a true federal entity. I don't know what they mean by true federal. Is it that false? Is it that federal or is not federal? Which one is true federal? So at the end of the day, you find very quickly that the only way that Nigeria might truly be revolutionized or changed is for those who believe that there is a better way to govern this country and to run our destinies, come together, present an alternative vision for the governance of Nigeria, then mobilize the people behind it, then call national strikes to shut everything down to the point where we have to force that conversation. Because waiting until 2023 is a waste of time. And I'm not even sure that going at our current pace and given recent events, that Nigeria can survive until 2023.
Wow.
The Nigerian state has two choices before it, two choices. War, and we're already at war. Up and down the length and breadth of Nigeria, Nigeria is already at war. The safest part of Nigeria used to be the southwest. Now, look, I have cocoa plantations in Ijebubo, bordering J4 by Akoje. I cannot go to my farm. I have been unable to go to my farms in the last 2 years because Fulani herdsmen have been spotted in the forests. This is in the southwest. And now you are having kidnappings on a daily basis. You are having skirmishes already. So it then means that you are gradually entering a shooting war, indiscriminate and ethno-religious in nature. So the reality is that the Nigerian state is already crumbling all around us. Anyone with ideas as to how to save Nigeria must be thinking about how to turn it around, because if it continues on its current trajectory, it is going to crash. So anything you do to spin around the country is a revolution. Not every revolution involves shooting any bullets. I don't have any gun. It's the state that is carrying guns up and down the place. So it is up to us who believe there are better ways to mobilize the people and get them to come along, because our current track is not sustainable. It will inevitably lead to a crash.
You've actually delved into this. Our time is almost up, but I really still want your take on this. Is there an end in sight to the structural and systemic crisis that is staring us at this time? Some have called for different options. The Sovereign National Conference, some have called for the restructuring of the country. You are talking about revolution. Is there an end in sight?
You know, when I was opening, I said that I hate linguistic inexactitude. I don't like it. When I use a word, I use it deliberately. In the Nigerian context, the word revolution has been given all kinds of bad names. They've given a dog a bad name in order to hang it. Each and every one of the military adventurers, the bandits who have shot their ways into power in Nigeria, have found it very convenient to call themselves revolutionary, even though they were anything but revolutionary in inclination or temperament. They were thieves. The only ones who might have legitimately acquired that might have been the Kaduna Nzeo Gulot, who are grossly unprepared, and the result showed. So every time the word revolution has been used in the Nigerian context, it has conjured up images of violence, of war, of strife. But if you go to the Latin root of the word revolution, it comes from the word revolve. And what it simply means is turn around. Anything that is done to take Nigeria away from its current trajectory is going to be a revolution. It is inexorably locked into the current trajectory. The rulers profit by our current trajectories. More money has been made because of the Boko Haram war by military contractors, by politicians and generals, by the rank and file, than at any other time in the history of the Nigerian military, because during the first civil war, now that's what we should be referring it to, and that's what we should be calling it. During the first civil war, there was to a very large extent civilian control of the infrastructure of finances. So the military didn't have as much access. There weren't so many contractors freeloading up and down the place. There were not the likes of Babachi Lawa cutting grass in IDP camp for hundreds of millions. Nobody was. So Nigeria was not here then. But now you have a huge military industrial complex built out of the misery of the Nigerian people. So they profit from these things. So it's almost as if we are unable to break out of the cycle that is It's clear. Fulani headsmen here, Fulani headsmen, everywhere you turn, there is one Fulani headsman there. And then you hear political leaders or rulers who should know better, speaking of how the Fulani everywhere in the south, in the western region from the Sahel, is actually a citizen of Nigeria. And when he does things, they have to cover him. And now they have long memory, justifying criminality. So you begin to ask yourself, can we get ourselves out of this? You have a president who is almost completely incapable of understanding that he is meant to be the father of all, not some ethnic irredentist. But unfortunately, he's so unrepentantly irredentist in his instincts that even when he shouldn't talk, his people will talk. They will justify the most venal crimes, the most wicked form of bestiality by the Fulani headsman will be justified. Not every crime is committed by the Fulani headsmen, but quite a significant portion of the insecurity in Nigeria is a direct result of the action of Fulani headsmen, and you find people who should know better justifying it. So you find very quickly that it's almost like, okay, everybody is not getting, now, all of a sudden, look at the way Punch, a newspaper I have a lot of respect for. Look at the way, when they were reporting the Sunday Igboho issue, they said a Yoruba freedom fighter. Is he not a freedom fighter? He's a freedom fighter. I can sit down here and speak all the Dogon Turenchi in the world. How many Fulani headsmen would my Dogon Turenchi move out of the forests? How many of the Fulani headsmen would my Dogon Turenchi move away from Iseyin, Igangan, and all the backwaters of Yoruba land that are being occupied today? So when you now find a situation where the likes of us are silenced because of our impotence, but the voices of those who can meet force with force is amplified and rendered respectable, it means you are drawing closer and closer to a war. So anything that is done to lock us, to take us away from that seeming determination to go and kill ourselves like lemmings running to go off a cliff is a revolution. So when I use the word revolution, I use it in the context of anything that we do to turn us away, because I repeat it again, we cannot keep going the way we are going and survive until 2023. It's not possible. And let me say this, I don't know if we are done, but let me say this. Anyone with half a brain, you might like me, you might dislike me, whatever else you do or do not do, it doesn't matter what you think of me. Take the time to look at my record of accuracy in predicting Nigeria and its trajectories. Each and every time I have made a categorical statement in relation to Nigeria, it has been the product of deep cogitations and divine inspiration. I'm not a pastor. I seldom pray. I converse with my Creator. I once in a while remember to pray. I read my Bible. But it has pleased God to give me a prophetic insight into Nigeria. And I'm saying it without equivocation. If we remain on our current trajectories, Buhari will be the last president of Nigeria, and Nigeria would sleepwalk into a shooting war that bodes no good for anybody. We are too close to the precipice, way too close to the precipice. And a lot of people will be exceedingly happy to see us go down that cliff.
Dele Farotimi, thank you so much for your insightful analysis and perspective. We hope
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Continue this conversation another time.